To start. There it is. Okay, everybody. Hi, I'm Shannon Miller. I'm here with Jennifer Hanyas, and we are going to talk about wellness for caregivers. Jennifer, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I'm excited to be here and share a bit about caregiver whole health. So I'm Jennifer Henius. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by background. I have over 20 years supporting veterans, their caregivers, and their families. And through this work, I've seen firsthand the physical, emotional, mental toll that caregiving can take. And I'm also a long distance family caregiver myself. And so I'm excited to share some insights today that I hope can help caregivers out there maintain a sense of balance while in their caregiving journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I said before, if people have questions during this webinar, feel free to put them in the Q&A. You can also put them in the chat if you prefer. All right.
Okay.
Jump
So
into the presentation because I know you have a lot of things to share.
we do. So we can start with an overview of what we'll cover today. So we'll begin by sort of setting the stage with important terms and statistics about family caregiving. Then we'll discuss the concept of caregiver burnout and its impact and why it's a recognized public health issue. And then from there, we'll introduce VA's whole health system as the foundation for a wellness model that we use in caregiver whole health. And then we'll do a short meditation practice and explore how we have adopted the VA's whole health approach to help guide caregivers toward positive health and well-being.
Awesome.
So throughout our discussion today, I invite everyone who's here with us to think about the things in life that make you feel whole. Think about those things that give your life purpose and meaning, and what comes to mind for you. Maybe it's certain hobbies that you have. Maybe it's spending time in nature. Maybe it's just your pets. Whatever those things might be for you, I invite you to be thinking about those things throughout the discussion today.
I'm going to interrupt you because that's what I'm going to do. But
Sure.
we had a client and his thing that he loved in his mid 90s was going to the cat cafe.
Oh, yeah.
So like we like planned his week to make sure that he gets, and he actually still doing it, that he
Oh, that's
gets to the cat cafe. We have a caregiver who goes and picks him up and he gets dressed up, and it's a really important outing for him.
yeah.
Honestly think if we couldn't get him to the cat cafe, his life might not be as good. But like
Yeah.
once we learned that that was his thing, like that's what he really loves. It really fills his little heart. It's been such a pleasure to watch him. And like I get pictures of him there and he's so happy. So,
Oh,
it may be something a little unusual that
yeah.
is actually somebody's thing, but
That's
I
right.
love that you're talking about like what is that thing that makes life worth living?
Yeah. What is that thing for you? So, as we get started, we're going to talk about a couple of key terms that I think are central to the discussion. So, first, wellness. What is wellness? Wellness is about making active choices and adopting your habits that support a healthy lifestyle. It's a way that we take action to improve our health in everyday aspects of life. And whole health takes that a bit deeper. It's an approach that looks at our physical, mental, spiritual, and even our social well being as a whole. And it's defined as what matters at each of us personally. So it's going to be different for each of us. And well being is the feeling of health, happiness, that sense of fulfillment that comes from practicing our wellness. It's that overall sense of balance and contentment that we're all striving for. And then self care is really the action steps that we can take to supporting our own health, whether that's managing our stress, eating well, getting enough rest. The self care is something that reminds us that, hey, we have an active role in shaping our health that's outside of our doctor's visits and outside of our medical care. So, who are today's family caregivers? Well, there are over 53 million Americans that are providing unpaid caregiver support across the country, with the majority of that being women. And the average age is between 45 and 64. So, that's a lot of folks out there who might be in that sandwich generation who are caring for their kids and also caring for their parents or grandparents. Caregiving impacts all of us, and it's very diverse as well. So it impacts some more than others, including those in the Black, Indigenous, and people of color community, BIPOC community, and the lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual community as well. They tend to do much more caregiving than those that do not identify as part of those communities. So the role is very widespread. We know it's challenging, and we know that it's crucial to the well-being of our families and our communities. Zooming in on Florida, there are nearly 3 million family caregivers providing essential support to loved ones. This care is valued at over $30 billion of unpaid care each year. So again, we are really the backbone of our healthcare system. And with Florida's aging population, the higher number of caregivers reflect the trends that we're seeing nationwide.
It's so interesting, that statistic about 1 in 7 in Florida expect to become caregivers within 2 years.
Yeah.
That is crazy. So I'm just curious, like, people know that their family is suffering with a chronic illness or has been diagnosed with dementia, and they know at some point that that parent or sister or brother, I mean, because, in our practice, we have, neighbors taking care of neighbors, and sometimes
Sure.
someone at your church, and usually it isn't paid. Although, sometimes what we also see is, that neighbor at church starts getting paid an inappropriate amount. So like, you also have to kind of be careful with some of these things, because as you lose the ability to really manage your finances when you have dementia or some other chronic illness, or you
Mhm.
feel beholden, that can be the other side of this, that can be a little scary. But I'm shocked at that statistic, 1 in 7 in the next 2 years. But
Mhm.
probably not, Jennifer. That's probably not surprising to you.
Yeah, no, that isn't. And these figures were prior to the pandemic. So that's the other important thing. So I'm sure that there are many more caregivers, not only in Florida, but across the country since then. We just need to do a better job of staying, getting that data analyzed. So now we're going to move into some of the challenges and identify the burnout that's so common among caregivers. And burnout is really a state of your physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that is often experienced from prolonged caregiving. And it can manifest itself in various ways. You can get physical symptoms like feeling fatigue, having mental fog, having difficulty concentrating, as well as emotional symptoms such as feeling hopeless and having some irritability and feeling it's more than just being stressed out. It's really taxing in multiple areas of your life. And it has a significant impact on your health and well-being. It doesn't just affect you emotionally, it affects your health too. And it's been linked to having a weakened immune system. It's been linked to increase your risk for chronic illness like diabetes, heart disease. It's been linked to sleep disruption and even reduced life expectancy.
I
So
think,
recognizing these signs and taking action to support your health is pretty crucial, as difficult as it may be.
and I always kind of come back to this idea that we don't expect people that work in nursing home facilities who are paid to take care of people, we don't expect them to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But
Mm,
somehow, if you're caring for a loved one, I mean, it's not a shift,
right.
especially when we're talking about aging spouses taking care of aging spouses, the expectation that they can do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it not impact their own health. And, they still need to do the laundry. They still need to, take care of all the other household items that come into play. It's
Mhm.
really just like it's a train wreck that's coming.
That's
And
right.
we put people into these positions of being a full-time caregiver all the time.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's true. And so the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and other health organizations are now starting to recognize exactly what you're saying, that this toll is significant. Family caregiving needs to be a priority for public health. In the same vein of diabetes, smoking, obesity, to raise the public awareness about the toll that caregiving can have on your health, and to be sure that caregivers are being identified, because many family caregivers don't actually recognize that they are in fact a caregiver. They might see themselves just simply, performing a role of a spouse or a daughter or son or what have you, and they don't really recognize that they are a family caregiver as well. And so there really needs to be a campaign of sorts, and a strategy in place to help deal with family caregiving, in the public health arena. And caregivers have a higher risk of depression, social isolation, substance abuse, and even suicidal ideation, which makes it essential to create accessible and supportive resources that support their whole health. So, moving from sort of this crisis mode, which caregivers have been in, and I think really the pandemic put a huge national spotlight on family caregivers and how critical their role is to our society. But we also know that our healthcare system is really broken. And I'm sure that if you're a caregiver, you may not have been asked by your medical doctor if you are a caregiver, and you may not be included in discussions with the person that you are giving care for. And so we really need a radical redesign of our healthcare system. And the Department of Veterans Affairs is really poised to lead this revolutionary approach. And they have been working on implementing a whole health system of care since around 2011 or 2012. It's an approach that moves away from a disease-based model of care that uses a find it, fix it kind of approach, asking, what's the matter with you and how can we fix it, to what matters to you, and putting the patient at the center and trying to help people trying to help people discover what gives them purpose, and equipping them with the tools for self-care to build their resilience for a sustained wellness plan. So these three different programs work together. The Pathway program offers peer support to help veterans identify their purpose and develop personal health goals. The clinical care is delivered as your medical treatment, but has the lens of a whole person health approach rather than just looking at the physical side of your health and well-being. And then the well-being programs include programs like health and wellness coaching and skill building classes like how to improve your sleep, how to reduce your chronic pain, as well as offer complementary and integrative health services such as yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, and other form acupuncture, other forms of integrative health services that have been proven to support your health and well-being. They use this tool that's called the Circle of Health, and the Circle of Health helps veterans to explore the connections between their health and other aspects of their life. So it's based on the idea that engaging the whole person is critical to positive health and well-being outcomes. So again, instead of focusing solely on your medical care, such as what prescriptions are needed to treat what illness or your injury, a whole health approach looks at your overall well-being and the role you have through self-care, preventative care and treatment, complementary and integrative care, and also the broader community and how that all comprises our whole health. It also recognizes that improving one area of your life, like in sleep, can impact another area. And so all of these different areas are interconnected between our overall physical, emotional, and mental health. So today we're going to explore how we have adopted this approach to help caregivers meet their well-being needs. Another key aspect of this is we've been talking about it is purpose and meaning. And studies have confirmed that having a high sense of life purpose correlates with lower mortality rates and better mental health, better physical health. Those who have a low sense of purpose have a 2.5 times greater risk of death. So there is real evidence and science behind, the need to really be connecting to that life purpose and meaning in your life. So for caregivers and for all of us, it's really important that we engage in those things that give us greater purpose and a sense of meaning. And for some caregivers, they absolutely feel a strong sense of purpose and personal fulfillment in their caregiving role, while others really may not. And that's okay. The key is really trying to stay engaged with those activities that do give you a sense of life purpose.
Jennifer, you're gonna have to say that again, because this is like something that people really struggle with.
Yeah.
I've heard families talk about, children talk about, I'm gonna move from my home in Texas to Florida to take care of my mom because she's in struggle. I'm gonna hate it. We don't get along. She's so bossy.
Mm.
Blah, blah, blah. And yet this person will leave their entire world to move to Florida to take care of their parent, and then they are miserable. And frankly, mom's a little miserable too.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's like some people can find purpose and meaning in the caregiving. And it may be that, the person who you're caregiving to, it's a good, it works, but it
Hmm.
doesn't work for everyone.
That's
And
right.
I love that you kind of say, look, if you're stuck doing it and you don't have any options, which does happen, especially with spouses,
Yeah.
they feel really like they made this promise to each other. They're going to be there until death, and they're not going to let them move into a facility. And so they feel kind of trapped in that role. And that's where we start to see a lot of the crashing from the caregiver
Mm.
burnout, because it is exactly like you said, they're not eating right, they're not sleeping, they're not taking time to fill their purpose and meaning. And
Yeah,
it just becomes about doing what they promised,
that's right.
opposed to, continuing to realize that they have their own purpose and life meaning.
That's right. Yeah,
Really important.
staying connected to your own identity outside of that caregiving role is really important. Hmm. Yeah. So now I'd like to invite us to try a short wellness practice by taking a mindful pause together. And there's no wrong way to practice, and there's nothing special that you need to do for this practice. So the invitation is to simply be here as you are and notice the sensations of your breathing as I guide you through this short meditation practice. And if you find yourself starting to think about what you're going to do later when this webinar is over, maybe you're hungry or you start thinking about whether or not you're doing this right, just notice that the mind is wandering and bring yourself back to your breathing. So let's begin by sitting comfortably wherever you might be, whether that's your bed or the chair, wherever you might be listening to the webinar, and begin to feel the support of the ground beneath you. And I invite you to close your eyes or simply soften your gaze. Allow your shoulders to relax. Relax your jaw and let your hands rest gently in your lap. Now take a deep breath in through the nose And slowly exhale it out through the mouth. And begin to bring your awareness to the natural rhythm of your breath, not changing it in any way, just allowing each inhale and exhale to come and go without changing a thing. Now I invite you to place one or both hands gently over your heart space. Feel the warmth of your hand against your chest. And notice the gentle rise and fall of your chest as you breathe in and out. This is a gesture of love and kindness towards yourself. A reminder that you are here to care for you too. And as you continue breathing, allow yourself to acknowledge the weight and the heaviness that can sometimes come with caregiving. You've been giving so much of yourself to others, holding so much on your shoulders. Let yourself recognize this tender truth and allow yourself to feel understood and cared for in this moment. Take a gentle breath in, and as you breathe out, I invite you to say silently to yourself, "May I give myself the compassion I need." May I give myself the compassion I need. And feel free to adjust these words to whatever might resonate for you. Maybe it's, may I give myself kindness. May I give myself the strength to keep going. And in this moment, send yourself the same love, kindness, compassion, and care that you would offer to a dear friend. Now let's extend this compassion outward by slowly opening your hands with your palms facing forward, as if sending that same compassion to everyone in this space, to caregivers everywhere who are walking this path with us. Imagine your love and kindness is reaching each person here today, creating a circle of shared compassion and understanding of our journey. Take another deep breath in. You can bring your hands gently back down to your lap. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes, bringing your awareness back to the room. And may this practice remind you that you are worthy of the same kindness, care, and compassion that you so freely give to others. So this is an example of a short exercise that can be done at any time. We had a guided practice today, but there's no right or wrong way to practice. You don't need to be sitting cross-legged in silence when you're meditating. There are many myths around meditation, and there are many ways to practice. This was a guided meditation example. And sometimes that's helpful if you're just getting started, to have a voice guiding you through the process. So.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was beautiful.
Sure. So now we're going to move into introducing Caregiver Whole Health, which focuses on empowering and equipping family caregivers to live their life to the fullest for sustainable caregiving and healthy aging. Our digital caregiver and well-being self-care platform offers a range of videos that are aimed at reducing burnout and preventing chronic disease that caregivers can access anytime from anywhere when it's most convenient for you. This platform is the first of its kind, really. We're super excited about it. And it grew out of an outgrowth from the pandemic, from our Yoga for Caregivers initiative, which we'll also talk just a little bit about. As I mentioned, we have adopted the VA's Circle of Health and their whole health model, and we have tailored it for caregivers. In our model, we place the caregiver at the center, and the middle layer recognizes the importance of self-awareness. And you need that mindful self-awareness in order to set boundaries and understand the impact that caregiving is having on your well-being. It also invites caregivers to connect to what makes them feel whole and what brings purpose and fulfillment beyond their caregiver identity and responsibilities. And then we have key domains of well-being, which you see listed here. And these are all interconnected aspects of life that are impacted by caregiving. Many caregivers are working. Sometimes it impacts our environment where we're living with somebody, or maybe we have to move, like in the case you just spoke about, where we're moving across the country. It just impacts so many areas of our well-being. The outer layers of self-care and self-compassion are about prioritizing that kindness toward ourselves and bringing some of that compassion that we're extending to others toward ourselves. And then also focusing on prevention and treatment and taking a proactive role in our health, because what we know is that caregivers often put their own needs on the back burner. They skip their own medical appointments. They don't take care of themselves in the same way that they're taking care of their family, friend, or neighbor, whoever it might be. In addition to addressing our personal care, personal well-being, caregivers often need to act as advocates, right, for the loved ones with complex healthcare needs, dealing with complex healthcare systems, and it's challenging. And you have to be your own advocate to be sure that your needs are getting met. And so this model recognizes that importance of advocacy and navigating healthcare bureaucracy, both during caregiving and in our own needs as caregivers age. And then this Yoga for Caregivers is the program that started for us as a community care initiative, a volunteer-driven initiative at the onset of the pandemic, where we attracted volunteer yoga teachers and really internationally, who wanted to be a part of this community. Many of them have been family caregivers themselves, and they were eager to give back and connect with the caregiver community who had been impacted by the pandemic. However, we are still offering classes now, 4 years later, for free. We've shifted a lot of our classes to YouTube, so I'll share a little bit about that because there are so many free accessible resources that we have now online. And then we also run a Facebook group that's free that has about 1,500 self-identified caregivers there that sort of act as a peer support group for folks that are there. But we aren't necessarily focused on the difficulties of caregiving. There's a lot of traditional caregiver support that's out there for folks. We are really focused in on helping caregivers reconnect to themselves in mind, body, and spirit, and focus on their own self-care goals and wellness goals. We also offer caregiver whole health coaching, and this is a program designed to empower caregivers in several key areas. It helps caregivers rediscover their personal goals and make self-care their priority, bringing a sense of balance back into your life, but also helping caregivers find their purpose and meaning beyond that caregiving role, beyond their identity with their caregiving responsibilities, and explore what passions and interests you might have that give you meaning to your life. We focus on building resilience and managing stress with practical tools and provide compassionate support and pretty much act like an accountability partner to help caregivers stay on track because we know how hard it is. So this program helps caregivers cultivate balance, energy, and well-being so they can really thrive, not only in their caregiving roles, but in their life as they try to stay connected and grounded to their own sense of good health and happiness. These are some ideas for simple practices that can have a significant impact on your health and well-being when they're practiced consistently. And you don't need to invest huge amounts of time. We spent maybe 2 to 5 minutes today, sort of on a mindfulness practice. And if you can set up yourself with 2 to 5 minutes a couple times a week, that's great because that over time adds up. So you can try mindfulness moments. Maybe it's a deep breathing. Maybe it's a quick gratitude exercise. Maybe for someone that's writing down the things that you're grateful for. There's an awful lot of science that's behind that. When you take the time to write your gratitude statements out, that really has an impact on your attitude and your outlook. And maybe it's movement and nutrition. So just taking a short break to exercise, get in a stretch. We know it's hard. You don't have to go for a hike, but maybe walk your neighborhood. Maybe just get out into your backyard and soak in the sun and get some vitamin D. And then, of course, staying socially connected is essential because we all feel lonely, and caregivers especially feel lonely and isolated. So it's important to try to join a support group, reach out to your friends and family, give people a call. It's consistency that's key so that you're starting small and you're building a foundation from there to enhance your overall well-being. I had mentioned to you that we have some free videos. This is really an amazing library that we have now accumulated. Again, that's donated from folks who have been family caregivers, but also happen to be seasoned wellness professionals and are really committed to our unique mission in trying to help caregivers, improve their health and well-being. So we have some Tai Chi classes, we have some chair yoga classes, we have emotional freedom technique or tapping classes. We have 5-minute mindful meditation that you can take. So I would just recommend that you check out these resources. They are created especially for caregivers, but they're beneficial to anyone to release some stress and tension. In terms of next steps, caregiver well-being is essential for sustainable caregiving and healthy aging. And by prioritizing holistic wellness, caregivers can begin to maintain their own health, reduce the burnout, and bring a renewed sense of energy into your life.
Jennifer, let me ask you a couple questions. Or keep going, but
yeah.
I know there's these questions that I don't see any in the chat, but I know that this question is on people's minds. So I don't know if you want to finish this slide.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So you're a child and you see that your parents, one is sick, maybe has dementia or Parkinson's or some other chronic illness, and we're seeing a decline. And you're seeing that parent who's taking care of the other parent starting to crash and burn. Suggestions for how to intervene in those situations,
yeah, when you can kind of see it coming, right?
Yeah.
Well, so honestly, Shannon, so one of the recommendations would be to reach out and find someone in care management who might be able to help you. And I think you have some resources for that in your office.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Even sometimes we get clients into our program and there's still like this sense of that caregiver really wanting to sacrifice, and they think that they can do the impossible.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to kind of break through to people like, you've lost 20 pounds, mom. You haven't, exercised or seen your friends like you used to get coffee and breakfast with your friends. And, you don't do that anymore. It's like you see this person really kind of fading away. And even when we get people into the program, sometimes it's really challenging to even provide additional help and services because there is this sense like, I'm the one who's supposed to do this.
Yeah.
So how do you like, yeah, we are always like, hey, let's add a caregiver on Tuesdays and Fridays. Or like Al's Place is another thing that we do a lot. Like we're like, okay, just 2 days a week for half a day, just to drop off our person to give you a minute to go to the gym or the grocery store, or just to have a minute to yourself.
Yeah.
And yet that step is so challenging to get.
It really is. It's the hardest step, right? But you got to start small, right? You don't need to go out for the day, right? You need to, like you said, just find a few minutes. Maybe it's, a hot shower, because honestly, some caregivers haven't really had a hot shower. So it's stepping back and thinking about, what are those small things where you can just linger a little bit longer in that shower head for yourself. We're so rushing, moving to the next thing. So maybe it's about taking a step back and having some mindfulness in how we're doing things, right? And just savoring that time that we have for ourselves. Maybe it's getting up a few minutes earlier than everybody else in the day. Maybe if you have kids in the house or whatever, your loved one in the house that you're caring for, maybe it's, getting up a little bit earlier and having that cup of coffee in a chair by yourself somewhere. It's starting small. Maybe you're not ready for a full respite program and you just can't, imagine taking a full day away. It doesn't have to be that. But how can you create these small micro moments for yourself throughout the day that might be a little bit more sustainable for you? And then over time, you can start to build upon that. And then I would say also some of it is about acceptance and finding a place of letting go and being okay with that.
Yes. And I will also like kind of add to that, there's this added layer of, we've taken mom or dad who's providing the caregiving out of the spouse's role and put them into this full-time caregiver role. And sometimes that there's like this void. They used to have this beautiful spouse relationship. It was a marriage. It was full of love. And now it's just about, when are your next medications? And you didn't eat enough of your lunch. So it can sometimes, what I see with people going through this process, in particular with dementia,
Mm.
like if we can get a caregiver in there or another family member, somebody from church, somebody who's going to come in and kind of take on the caregiving stuff. They're going to do the dishes. They're going to prepare the meal, give you a minute to just be the wife and hold each other's hand and watch your favorite show, or, rub his back, or, whatever it is that the two of you do together as spouses.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're so busy with the caregiving, it may even be at the very end of life, which can be such a beautiful time for people to experience that relationship. And we're so focused on, are we going to get a feeding tube? Are we going to, is there enough fentanyl patches in the house? Like sometimes it's great to give some of that responsibility over to somebody else so that we take advantage of this beautiful time we have left to really treasure our relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And the sandwich generation, it's kind of like this, people are living longer. Sometimes we have grandchildren taking care of grandparents who have small children. And there's this group of individuals who are taking care of an upper generation and a lower generation.
That's
and
right.
and
Yeah,
trying to maintain their own sanity.
that's right.
It's really a lot. And I agree with you that we have to start figuring out how caregiving looks. I know there've been some strategies, like we know in Florida, you can actually pay someone to provide services for you and still qualify for Medicaid. We call these things personal services contracts. So
Mhm.
the VA has that as well, where now the VA is starting to allow us to use these kinds of contractual agreements with family members to pay them and still be qualified for benefits. So
Mm.
we're starting to get there. We're starting to recognize the real value, because when we have family members taking care of family, there's lower medical costs.
That's right.
Medicare doesn't have to pay out as much. If the VA doesn't have to pay out as much for your bed sore, they benefit from paying these, allowing people to pay for care in families. So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, it's going to take a big change. I feel I agree with you on this. The pandemic had a huge impact on recognizing the true value of caregivers. And we saw a relatively large pay increase for caregivers that are in facilities. We've been seeing that because you guys know it is such a hard job,
Mhm.
such a hard job. But I just love this topic. And you're just fantastic, Jennifer. You're such a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you very much.
Really
Thank
great.
you for having me.
Yeah, let me just make sure and see if we have any other questions. Okay, there is a request to share the slideshow. Is that something that you would be willing to provide to us so that we
Yeah,
send it? That would be great, because then when we
sure.
send the video link, we can also send your slides. That would be awesome.
Okay.
And then the French movie Amour is the greatest movie ever for the story of a caregiver. It is about everything that has been discussed today. Okay, so a little tip from our group. Someone else suggested A Mother's Rest
Oh,
as a resource share.
okay.
Yeah, so those are things, I haven't seen any of that or checked out that resource, but I did watch with a group at a local CCRC at Okemik. We watched a story about dementia and the caregiving role of the husband taking care of someone with early onset dementia. What is it called? It's called like 1960s, and it was just a fabulous movie. Just really kind of being in denial about dementia and then kind of watching that progress.
Okay.
So anyway, this has been great. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us. We are
Sure.
at the end of our program, and we just really appreciate you coming. And I definitely am going to check out some of these resources that you have.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll be around with each other, I hope.
Yes.
All right, guys, have a great day. You'll get the video, and we are going to get the slide presentation. Oh, here's someone who joined us. I manage Soul Carers Network in Cape Town, South Africa, social page.
Oh, wow.
And I share. Of course,
Wow.
yeah, the more the merrier, kind of please get the word out. We would love to hear more about people being able to use the resources that we're creating to help other people. So yes, please.
Amazing.
All right. Well, have a great one, and thanks for joining.
Thank you.